Okay, I'm making this video on how I turbocharged my O2 V6 3800 Firebird. I'm making it because this video would have really been helpful to me if I would have seen something like this before I had gotten into it. I've seen like videos of somebody on a dyno with a turbocharger, read forums about them doing it, but never really seen a video as to how they did it. So if you're not familiar with how a turbocharger works, it basically uses the exhaust gases, which are normally vented outward, down and out through the exhaust system, but it goes instead up to what I'm going to call a turbine, which is under there, and it spins it. And what it does when it's spinning that on its way outward, the exhaust gas as they go outward is turning another fan. I'm going to call it a squirrel cage type fan that's sucking air from the outside and basically into your engine. This one goes through an intercooler to cool the air because this turbocharger gets really hot. You want to cool the air down before it gets to your engine. So that turbo fan is blowing through an intercooler, which I have mounted underneath here, and I just basically cut the plastic on the bumper back and folded it under. But that's the pathway going up to the radiator there, and it's not running hot at all. Temperatures are good. It's sitting low. It's already been dented. The pipe comes down from the turbocharger, goes in one side of it, it's cooled, and then it goes back up the other side. Brought it up here, and goes past the blow-off valve. And that's your temperature sensor there, and then it is blown pressurized into the throttle body of the engine. Different things that's got to be done. Try to keep the picture up straight. You got a pressure sensor, map sensor back there, which is used to working on vacuum. It's now got pressure on it, so that's got to be changed out. That's the one that gets a 2-bar pressure sensor. The PCV valve on this one is right here. What that normally does is it takes internal pressure of the engine. It's in the oil pan and under the valve covers, and it vents it back into the manifold, which before it was turbocharged it was at a vacuum, but now it's pressurized, so that won't work. So I pulled that out and I've soldered it shut, brazed it shut, I guess. And now the pressure is released from the valve cover where you put your oil in, basically. Just put one that's got a AN fitting on it, and I run that hose back along the back of the engine over to what they call a catch can, which basically collects the oil that's getting blown out of there. And from there it goes back into where we now have a vacuum, which is a air breather. It's a can-in filter. I just cut a hole in it and shoved a fitting in it, and it's working well. The turbocharger needs to be oiled, which is what this is. It's oil that it's an oil line we've tapped into underneath the oil pressure sensor. Good or not? can't really see it that good. Anyway, oil pressure sensor, teed it off of there. So you get oil pressure going up to lubricate your turbocharger. Then on the bottom of the turbocharger, we got another line, which is again hard to see. Worst thing about these is space, fitting them in there. At the bottom of the turbocharger, there's a oil line that drains back to the oil pan. I had to pull the oil pan, put a hole in it with a fitting for that oil to drain back into the oil pan. Getting the oil pan out of one of these is a challenge. Runs really, turbochargers have gotten a lot of components. It's hot and normally down below, you know, out in front on something like this, to where it's getting heat around things that aren't used to them. So the exhaust, first in the Scram Speed, the one that did the dyno tuning, also installed a aluminum heat shield there, which does a good job of keeping the heat away from some of these electrical components. Got the only exhaust we could fit on. It's a 4-inch vibrant resonator, which goes off of, it's down there. I don't know if it can be seen or not. I'm just hooked on the exhaust, in which we just dumped it out the bottom. The big one's the exhaust that's going through the turbo. The smaller one is off the wastegate. What the wastegate does is that's what regulates the amount of boost you allow to accumulate to the turbo system. That wastegate is basically a regulating valve right down there. When too much pressure starts building up, it just vents it out that little pipe along the bottom. Control the setting on the wastegate with this boost control right here. Over here is the blow-off valve. The wastegate's on your exhaust, and your blow-off valve's on your charge pipe that's going into your throttle body. It's the air you're actually pressurizing and blowing into the engine. The job of the blow-off valve is to release pressure if it gets built up too high on the charge pipe, which you hear that go off when you've applied the gas, opened up the throttle, and then you let off real quick. Well, there's a bunch of extra pressure in that charge pipe that you don't need going into the motor, and that just relieves it so it don't have too much pressure going in when you let off the gas. The steering reservoir right there, had to move it over. It would have been too close to the manifold there, going over to the turbocharger. All the gold tape is heat tape. Like I said, you're getting these exhaust pipes up here where they're normally not, around components that are not used to that kind of heat. Air conditioner works. I had to modify it a little bit, and I've insulated it with, I got insulation underneath this heat tape there, and I wrapped the suction lines so that the compressor don't overheat, don't pick up too much superheat and overheat. Let's see, tuning it. At first we thought it was going to be a real challenge for the dyno people at first, because it kept being real fat on the lower RPMs, had too much gas. Checked around, all the people we knew of with, you know, that ran dyno said we can't and we don't tune those kinds of engines. So I'm thinking, what did I do here? I got myself into a mess, and then finally Kyle at Scram Speed contacted ZZ Performance's tuner Tim, and he specializes in these engines. And what cured it was is he had to drill a 3/32 holes in 3/32 hole in the throttle body, and it runs great. That gives it the air it needed for the lower RPMs. So that's the temperature sensor. This is your mass airflow. This is how much air is actually telling the computer how much air is actually going through the engine. In the back, it tells it how much pressure is actually on the intake manifold. It's running real good, real smooth. Pretty much double the horsepower for what it is. Didn't start out with much. The factory says that these start out with 200 at the engine, but it's well below that at the wheels coming out of the factory. I think this one was died on like 130 at the wheels, which isn't uncommon from what I'm reading at the online about these. There just wasn't a lot at the wheels on them. So now we're at 282 at the wheels, which is far greater than 200 at the engine. Rule of thumb's 20% more at the engine, so I mean we're somewhere around 340, I guess, at the engine comparative to 200. Hopefully you can read this. This is the chart from Scram Speed, who did a great job on tuning it. They go into the computer and tune all the fuel and timing, basically is what they got to deal with on this computer. I think basically fuel and timing. Tuning costs like $750, so it's not cheap. I took it to the racetrack last night, got rained out. Only got 2 passes in. For what it is, the numbers, it's a lot better than it was. Dropped over a second from what it was doing. With just a cam in it and no turbocharge. This does have a VS cam in it. It works out well. It's a comp cam VS cam for 3,800. So I'll do better at the racetrack. I wasn't starting off quick enough. I didn't have the RPMs up near fast enough. It will get better, but that's all I can show you right now. It's got a lot of high end. He said, tuner said it would beat a LS1 on the top end easy, because it's just got a lot of top end on it when that turbo kicks in. He says most of the stock LS1s that come into his speed shop have about 300 horsepower at the wheel. We're pushing over 280, so it's pretty close. Well, now I guess I should start it. Oh, let's try to hear it. It's too loud, but that's the only muffler I could fit in there. I said it, but the reason we dumped the exhaust out the front was because it's just be very difficult to run it out the side of this motor over the steering column. Lots of stuff would have to be moved, and then it would be way tighter than you probably would want it. So hope this helps someone or somebody finds it interesting anyway. I did when I did it, so it does run good. It's absolutely a success. So basically this engine's got about probably 340 horsepower at the engine, 282 horsepower and 282 torque at the wheels. I also put a air straightener in this charge tube. It's basically a 3/16 honeycomb device that I epoxied in to stop any air turbulence going into the throttle body. So there it is.